The word Cyclopean evokes images of a geometry so vast, brutal, and alien that it seems to defy human agency, while modern readers frequently encounter this adjective within the cosmic horror of H.P. Lovecraft. Its semantic lineage stretches back nearly 3 millennia from now, June 19, 2026. The origin of the Cyclops from an ancient paleontological misunderstanding to an architectural classification, and finally to a psychological tool of Lovecraftian stories, reveals how a singular mythological figure can be repurposed to express humanity's evolving anxieties regarding scale, time, and the unknown. The figure of the Cyclops, from the Greek word Cyclops, that means round-eyed or ring-eyed, emerged from two distinct traditions in classical antiquity: the theological craftsmen of Hesiod and the pastoral monsters of Homer. The first fossil hunter scholar, Adrian Mayer, advanced a compelling materialist origin for the physical myth. The Mediterranean basin, particularly islands like Cyprus, Crete, and Sicily, contains rich deposits of Pleistocene fossil beds. Among these are the remains of Dinotherium and dwarf elephants, Paleoloxodon antiquus. To an ancient observer lacking modern comparative anatomy, a fossilized elephant skull presents a shocking, terrifying silhouette. It is roughly twice the size of a human skull. It features a massive singular central cavity. This cavity is actually the nasal opening, the nasal fossa for the trunk attachment, because the actual eye sockets on an elephant skull are small, lateral, and easily overlooked in poorly preserved specimens. Ancient Greeks interpreted this gaping central void as a single, massive eye socket centered in a humanoid forehead. Later on, in Homer's Odyssey, Book 9, the Cyclops, especially Polyphemus, are framed as the antithesis of Greek polis civilization. They lack agriculture, laws, communal assemblies, and respect for Xenia, the sacred law of hospitality. They represent a primordial state of raw nature. Conversely, Hesiod's Theogony casts the Cyclops, Brontes, Steropes, and Argus as divine blacksmiths who forge Zeus's thunderbolts. Here, they symbolize primordial, tectonic force, harnessed by divine intellect to establish order over chaos. In biological and medical terms, cyclopia is a rare, severe form of holoprosencephaly, a congenital disorder that occurs during early embryonic development in humans and animals. Instead of the forebrain dividing normally into two distinct hemispheres, it remains a single, undivided structure because the brain fails to split. The signaling pathways that dictate the layout of the face are disrupted, leading to a failure of the facial skeleton to develop its usual middle structures. The transition of Cyclops from a biological entity to an architectural descriptor occurred during the classical period of Greece, driven by a profound historical disconnect. In the Bronze Age, circa 1600 to 1100 BC, the Mycenaean civilization constructed massive fortifications at sites like Mycenae, Tiryns, and Gla. These walls were built using enormous, unworked, or roughly dressed limestone blocks, often weighing several tons each, stacked without mortar. The gaps were packed with smaller limestone fragments and clay. Following the late Bronze Age collapse, Greece entered a dark age. By the time classical Greece emerged centuries later, the engineering techniques required to move such monolithic stones had been entirely forgotten. Beholding the ruins of Mycenae and Tiryns, classical Greeks concluded that human beings could not have lifted these stones. Geographer Pausanias noted that even a pair of mules could not stir the smallest block. Consequently, they attributed the architecture to the Hesiodic Cyclops, who possess the titanic strength necessary to forge thunderbolts. This birthed the term Cyclopean masonry, a style characterized by a massive scale and megalithic weight, wildly irregular polygonal geometry, an absence of mortar, relying entirely on gravity, friction, and interlocking mass for structural integrity. This architectural style influenced later cultures, including the Etruscans in Italy, and draws structural parallels to the independent engineering feats of the Inca at Sacsayhuaman. When H.P. Lovecraft adopted the word Cyclopean into his literary lexicon, he stripped it of its classical mythological trappings while hypercharging its architectural connotations. Lovecraft used the term not to evoke a one-eyed giant that is strange for itself, but to trigger a specific aesthetic and philosophical response. We don't know what is out there because we are insignificant in comparison. In stories such as The Call of Cthulhu from 1928 and At the Mountains of Madness of 1936, Cyclopean serves as a primary stylistic descriptor for the pre-human cities of R'lyeh and the Elder Things Antarctic metropolis. Lovecraft routinely paired the word with terms like non-Euclidean, loathsome, and Titan. For example, in The Call of Cthulhu, Johansson's log describes R'lyeh as a coastline of mingled mud, ooze, and Cyclopean masonry, which could be nothing less than the tangible substance of Earth's supreme terror. The geometry of the place was all wrong. Lovecraft weaponized the architectural history of the word to achieve three distinct literary goals: the eradication of human scale, deep time evocation, and geometrical strangeness. The evolution of the Cyclops is a testament of the human instinct to rationalize the unknown.